Okay, folks, I didn't realize that there were so many of us today, over 1,200 of us. Well, here's for an exciting day. Over to me now, and what I want to just do is I want to go through just a bit of a historical journey with you, just going to give you a wee flavour of some of the research that we've been doing. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Doctoral Midwifery Research Society, not very much. I want to also just sort of give you a flavour of some of the research that we're currently involved in. And then I want you to engage in a little bit of an exercise with me. I want you to indulge me by taking part in a little poll, see how it works. We've never done this before, but it's really to see if we can do it. And I would be very interested in your views. I'm going to tell you a tiny little bit about some of the very interesting results which have come from the ARCs from the Northern Ireland Life and Time Survey. So that's basically what I'm going to do. So it is a lot in a short time frame. So I do speak quite fast. I'll try my best to be not too fast. So I'm going to start with a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, and this is the second slide anyway, and this is a program for today. I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that there was it's a very full program. It's a tight show. It always is with the DMRS. We try to have a pre-docs, post-docs. We always have parenting groups represented. We always have, as Nicola has said, lectures from experts in methodology. And we've got Professor Amy Brown today, and we've got Professor Sue Down. So it's just that we do try to give you a really great experience, and I hope that you will have one this day. In terms of there's intermissions, those are just about 10-minute breaks so that you can run off and get a wee cup of tea, hopefully. And depending what part of the world you're in, maybe it might be an evening glass of bubbly or something nicer. Anyway, just to point out on the program, it says this program will finish, the live program for everybody everywhere will finish just after lunchtime, about 12:35. The workshop in the afternoon is a closed workshop. It's part of the work that we're doing in relation to identification of research questions and trying to work our way through some of the research questions that we may take forward. So that's the program. And in terms of just a few little points I need to say to you, in terms of your questions, the questions are really, really important to us. We do want you to use your chat box, and we want you to type your questions in, because all of your speakers and all of your videos are actually off at the moment. We will try to answer some of your questions. We've asked all the speakers to speak for a short period of time, not the exact amount on the program, and leave 5 minutes for questions. Those questions will come through to me on my phone, and I will try and ask you to answer a couple of them. Those that are not answered, we will try and send to the speakers who have kindly agreed to try and respond. So if you've got very key questions, we will do our very best to make sure that they are answered. So bear that in mind. Now, an extremely important factor to point out to you is to complete the feedback form. Now, the feedback form, if you go on to the DMRS webpage, you need to just sort of just look at where it's positioned, because it is in a little bit of a different place. And just above the conference program, you'll see the blue line that says leave conference feedback form. When you complete that conference feedback form, you will get your certificate of attendance, and you will also get access to your box sets. So it's really, really important. Now, I want to try and just take you through some information just about the Doctoral Midwifery Research Society. We established it in 2007, as Nicola has said, with a grant from the R&D office, and we're delighted to continue to be able to do that. And we have a presence on social media. We've got Facebook page, Twitter, and we use the DMRS website. Our YouTube site is actually becoming very busy, and we've got quite a lot of really useful lectures, presentations there. So please do try and visit it. There's a lot of useful information, particularly for students. Here are this is how you can contact us: Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and just through the Society webpage, just by checking it out. As I said to you, this year we're holding the 4th conference online. That's the first time we've done this before. So Please be gentle with us, as we sometimes might make the odd mistake. It's all new to us, and we're learning. But it is a very important annual research event, and we're delighted to have your support and delighted that you're all with us today. We do present research for the Doctoral Midwifery Society at other events, and this was research that we presented for the World Birth Defects Day. Led to them giving us a platinum award, so we're very pleased that they did that, because we were sharing breastfeeding research with them in relation to the experiences of mothers who have children who are born with congenital anomalies such as cleft lip and palate, and that was part of a European study. But it was important to have an opportunity to share that knowledge. Now, this is a very, very busy slide, so I don't expect you to sort of follow it in detail, but the numbers are on it for a reason. It's just to give you some sort of an idea of the sum of the journey. You know, we've been at this business for about 20 years, and sometimes you wonder what it's all about. And you're going to hear Janet Calvert speaking shortly, and Janet was involved with us in doing some very early research that we started in 1997. I was working in telemedicine in Queen's University in 1994, and when it came to fruition, it was its first. I think the first real application of telemedicine was when we used it for tele-breastfeeding, and that was unique. We then continued on to move the research to look at the experiences of women who were receiving midwife-led care. That was Patricia Gillen and ourselves. Funded research came from the R&D office in 2007, and we did really fascinating research on looking at motivation to breastfeed, and that's where we worked with the gold standard of the BFI, and we motivation enhanced it, and demonstrated that you could actually increase persistence and breastfeeding length of time. So it was really interesting research. Maria Hearn, you're going to hear speaking very shortly, and Maria did fabulous research looking at online social support to breastfeed, and has continued her work since then. We've had a continuation of motivation to breastfeed in different cultures, and Leslie Dornan was speaking last year. She's not speaking this year. But it's, we've been working across different cultures, looking at breastfeeding experiences, looking at motivation and the impact of culture. We've been looking more recently at the challenges to breastfeeding, and you'll hear Laura Hutchinson speaking later on, and you'll also hear Sharon Gale speaking. And Laura's just finished, and Laura is our will be talking to us about her research, which was looking at transfer of medications into breast milk. And Sharon will be talking to us about nipple pain. Now, this number 6 on the screen is the research that we did, Dr. Julie McCulloch and myself, in relation to breastfeeding children with anomalies. More recent research, which is very, very new, is breastfeeding trauma and EMDR. And you will hear Rachel speaking to you later on, and Rachel will tell you a little bit about that research, which is really novel. And there's a massive study going on, Conception. Some of you may even be from the Conception Research Project, and if you are, you're most welcome. And that's research from a big massive European study looking at the transfer of medications in breast milk. And our good colleague, Professor Helen Dolk, and her team are involved in that. That's a lot of stuff to tell you, but I just want to start. I want you to focus in on this, and hopefully you can see this screen. In this screen, this is the research that Janet and myself did many years ago. This takes a long time to get the publications out, but this publication was published then in 2001. What I want to say to you is the exciting bit here is that if you can look at the very bottom of it, the problems included an inability to get the baby correctly latched on, mastitis, and refusal to feed. And that was nearly 20 years ago. We thought telemedicine could actually do something to help, particularly with helping people to identify lactation problems. So bear that in mind as we go through. I'm just going to take you now through just a couple of the other outputs, because it's good to sometimes see that things have actually been published. This is a publication, again, in our evidence-based midwifery journal, which is our official journal for the DMRS. This is the feasibility results from design of breastfeeding. And the good thing there is that we actually, as I said to you, we actually were able to increase the breastfeeding for a very short period of time. It was an interesting study of great value, and we've continued to build on it. If you want to know a lot about that study in detail, you want to know the theoretical aspects of it, it would be really worth your while to read the 2 chapters in the Theory for Midwifery Practice. That's the only midwifery research theory book there is in the world. And Roz and I did another edition of it in 2011, and we're delighted to have those chapters in it. There's very good detail in relation to the actual whole process of the research. Important if you're thinking about replication or studies like that. And this paper here, again, in our evidence-based midwifery journal, Thai cultural influences in breastfeeding behaviour. That was taking the theories of motivation, but also looking at culture, because culture is really powerful. And this paper demonstrates how important the Thai way of breastfeeding was. Very important to them. They have their own way. They had their BFI, and they have their cultural norms. Fabulous paper, fabulous story. And this is an important paper to share with you, because in terms of getting measurements, getting scales and developing scales, they're very difficult things to actually achieve. It takes a long time. Sometimes it takes you a whole PhD study to actually develop an instrument. And this was Janine Stockdale's breastfeeding motivational implementation scale. Like, it really is her BIMS, her motivational measurement scales, pardon me, her BIMS. And this paper well, gives you the detail in relation to the validity and reliability of the study, and it'll be very good for people who are wanting to continue to do breastfeeding research to think about using tools like this. And Sharon will be speaking to you later on. Sharon Gale, this is her just recently published, really fascinating results in relation to nipple pain, because it's such a traumatic subject. Even thinking about it makes one memories. I have memories of these things, but really and truly, the position attaching it seems to be very important. But whenever you look in the results and you look in the literature, you actually realize that we don't actually have enough information to recommend any specific intervention, study design, or to determine the impact of breastfeeding duration. So we really have to think very seriously about continuing to do more research in this area. And Sharon will share some of her research with you later on. Laura will also share a little bit of her work with you. And Laura, as a community pharmacist, and Laura was, as I said to you, she was looking at the transfer of medications into breast milk. So she actually did a study where she was actually looking at taking the mother's breast milk, and she also took salivary samples from the neonates, from the babies. And this paper was a really important paper, because we had to be sure that the actual process, the method, the laboratory method for the extraction of the compounds from the saliva, that this was actually feasible and acceptable to mothers. So that was really good to have actually been involved in doing that. And Nicola mentioned this study to you earlier on. This was work that we did with the whole team, which was lovely. It was a lovely team effort. We worked on it together, the Breastfeeding Implementation Strategy Group. So delighted to have an output where we actually got together and reviewed the literature. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come out and say, yes, this works or that works, so this is the best way forward. But we do know that we have got more research to undertake, which is part of the work that we're doing this afternoon, is building on from this. So current breastfeeding at Ulster, you're going to hear Sharon speaking to you later on about the experience management and impact on nipple pain in breastfeeding mothers. And you have Rachel, who's also going to tell you about the efficacy of an online EMDR intervention for improving breastfeeding outcomes in women with previous negative breastfeeding experiences. She won't be telling you all of that. That's the study that's going on. She's going to share with you a little bit of the literature review that she's just currently publishing. And as I said to you at the beginning of this presentation, I wanted to say a tiny little bit to you just about the Northern Ireland Life and Times survey. We're absolutely delighted, because this is the first time they actually asked questions in relation to breastfeeding. For us, we've just had been eyeballing the research. I haven't got time to share the whole thing with you today, but we do have a webinar planned for the 9th of December. It's free, it's open, you can all join it, and we'll be presenting the research in a lot of detail. Just a quick glance, 1,203 respondents, random sample of addresses, and The interesting thing was 50, as you can see, 55.3, 249 out of the 450 has some breastfeeding experience, which is really very good. A bit of a surprise, and I'm delighted. I'm sure Janet's sitting there and she knows these results and she's pleased to see them. And 27% of all respondents said that their children were breastfed at least once, which is also a very encouraging outcome. Now, I'm not so sure that this is what I expected. I've only selected one question for you, one statement for you. Breast milk is healthier than formula for babies. And I want you just to look very carefully at these results. The first thing that you notice, okay, this is men and women together, right? But agree, yes, breast milk is strongly agree, 32 agree, 22 and 36. So you're looking at that then, you're saying to yourself, okay, so 58% are positive. And now you start to see, well, where do the rest of the people lie with their thoughts on this? And you can see they're neither agree nor disagree, sitting in the middle. Disagree, strongly disagree, and don't know. So you just put the don't knows, disagrees. Just think of the variation. Think of the work that has to be done or that could be done. Just think of the variation in those responses. Now, I only selected one, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but we will be going into it in a lot of detail on the 9th of December. It was just to give you a flavour of the outcome, and to also encourage you to tap in on the 9th of December for a little bit more. Now, that's the 9th of December, and you can register at that particular address. And we will be doing a presentation on it. Julie, myself, Rachel, and Paul Slater, and we will be presenting it there over at Queen's. Now, on to the interesting part of my morning. This is a bit that excites me. I wish I could see your faces, and I wish I could hear what you see, but I'm now going to ask you to do a little poll, a little opportunity for you to engage and hopefully tell me what you see. Now, in front of you are two pictures. And as an audience, I have no doubt you're all going to see different things. Bear with me, enjoy this exercise for a little moment, right? And I want you now to fill in a poll that's going to come up on your screen. On your screen is going to come up a poll, and it's going to ask you what you see. Do you see a young woman? Do you see an old woman? Do you see an old woman and a young woman? But what I want you to do is I want you to scroll down your page and fill it in. And if you just take a couple of seconds to fill that in now, Paul, our technical expert, is going to then send me the response, send me your answers. So I've got to give you just a couple of seconds just to scroll down the page and fill it in. And as I said to you, we haven't done a poll before, so it's a whole new experience. So here's hoping that it works. I'm sure it will, Paul, but anyway, here's hoping it will work. So if you've all managed to, hopefully your questions up on your screen now, and scroll down and fill in your responses. Okay. Now, I want to say to you that I wanted you to do that little exercise first of all, because I want to talk to you about research which is really bugging me at the moment, and an area of research that I feel that we need to think very carefully about getting involved in. And that research is the impact of environmental pollutants on breast milk. Some of you have already heard me speaking about this. Some of you know that I've been interested in this for about 4 years now. And the transfer of medications, I've been involved in that research for nearly 10 years. But in this particular research, we're really only getting involved in it. We put in a proposal recently. We got very good feedback, got through to the second round. All I want to say to you is that this is one of those research areas that can be quite it can be difficult to get people to see the value of doing it, and particularly if you feel that breastfeeding is going to be challenged or that it's going to have a negative impact on breastfeeding. I am 100% committed to breastfeeding, no matter what. But I am also committed to looking after the environment, and I have not got any shares I mean, I haven't been speaking to Greta Kunsberg, so I'm not Marlene Kunsberg, but I do indeed admire the young woman. I think what she's done for our environment is really amazing, raising issues and raising awareness. Really important stuff, because you know, what we want and what we want to make absolutely sure is we want women's breast milk. We want women's breast milk to be the best it can possibly be. We want women to be under no circumstances think about giving up their breastfeeding for fear. But what we need to do at the same time is we need to start to collect the data. We need to collect the breast milk. We need to collect the samples from the babies, and we need to, if there is an issue, we need to start raising our voices. We need to. I mean, I'm not a placard person, but if the environmental pollutants are actually having a negative impact on women's breast milk, we need to be shouting at the top of our voices with a united front to say this is not acceptable and something needs to be done, and really engage heavily in protecting breastfeeding at this angle as well. It is an important angle, and I just wanted to say to you, please keep an open mind to this research. Since I've been involved in this area, we're seeing more and more and more publications, and this one here probably it concerned me again, and it probably inspired me yesterday to put this into the presentation, because I wasn't going to mention anything about it because it's been quite controversial, and I haven't had the most pleasant experiences in relation to sharing my thoughts with some colleagues about it. But having said that, an article like this is actually quite it's controversial, it's challenging, because an article like this actually demonstrates something which is quite challenging, because this was research was conducted looking at women who had a higher BMI and looking at the pollutants and the levels in breast milk and the levels of certain carcinogens, and it actually was quite challenging because it was identifying that those levels were actually higher than they should be. Now, I'm just saying that to you because we do need to think about trying to do something about that. Now, the results are in. Oh, the results are in. Oh, how exciting. Let's see what this is. Let me see when I can get this here now. Where is it? Results are in, posted. Let me see if I can find them. Can't see them now. Oh, yes. 85% of you see both old woman and young woman, which is brilliant. Brilliant. And 15% of you see only the young woman. Now, this is really good, because it's about that ability to see. Well, from my perspective, I interpret that as an ability to be able to see things from different angles and be able to hold different perceptions at the one time. And it's really important when we're talking about research of this nature. And you're now going to see coming up on your screen 2 further questions for the poll. And I would like you to please, Paul's going to put those questions up on the poll now, and I'd like you to please look at those questions. And if you could just take a couple of seconds to answer those questions, I would really appreciate it. Paul, can you put the questions up, please? Thank you. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a chance to fill in the 2 questions, and Paul will send me the results and I'll tell you what those results are. I want to now finish by just saying to you that I would encourage you all to please think very seriously about publishing in our evidence-based midwifery journal. It's a unique journal. This year we were inducted into the Nursing Journal Hall of Fame. We're absolutely delighted. It's a wonderful, wonderful award, and we value it enormously. And as you know, it is the Royal College of Midwives evidence-based midwifery journal. It has no advertisements of any description in it, and we've recently just amalgamated with Midders. So we have a new. We still have our EBM set within it. But the important thing to tell you is that the journal is double-blind, peer-reviewed, and has always been, and it is fully open access after 3 months, and you don't have to pay. So please think about that, and in terms of that being valuable to you from a research or from a REF perspective, Research Excellence Framework perspective, that is valuable. So if there are any questions, I'll try and see if I can answer any of your questions before we've got 4 minutes. So if there are any major questions, I'll try and answer them before I introduce our next speaker. So we'll see what happens with the poll and hopefully if it'll be live again. I think there might be a slight issue with the poll, but hopefully it's going to work. The first one worked, which was great. So let's see how the second one works. If I don't see any questions which have come up for me, but you can always send them to me afterwards. So I hope that in terms of what I've said to you, that you've got some insight into our Doctoral Midwifery Research Society. You've got some insight into the research that we're doing, certainly in Ulster, and we've been at it for 20 years. We're delighted to be with you today to share some of that research. And as I said to you, we couldn't do it without the support of the R&D office. We couldn't do it without the support of you, the support of the students, without the support of colleagues and mothers. So thank you all very much, and particularly thank you to all the mothers who may be online, who have been working with us and helping us with our research, and particularly those of you who have children who are born with cardiac problems or born with any congenital pneumonia or any problems at all. We're delighted to have had your help in the past and to be working with you and continue to work with you in the future. Thank you all very much. I'm going to now move on actually, and if I get the poll results, I'll share them with you. What I want to now do is I want to introduce you to our next speaker.